Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode I've ever done live here at the NSCA event in Kansas City, Missouri. Super thankful to be joined by Jared Jarvi. Jared is an incredible individual. I've called him the Golden Boy recently. So I've known Jared for over a year now. We actually met at this event last year of all places. So it's only fitting to come full circle, do a live podcast here a year later. Dude, I love everything you've been doing on the strength and conditioning side, the sports science side, and you're just an impressive human. But for people who don't know you as well as I've gotten to know you, would you mind filling in a bit about who you are and all the amazing stuff you're doing, man?
Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for having me on, especially doing it here at the NSCA conference. I mean, I think I got a lot of my first starts in meeting people in strength and conditioning at regional sport, like strength and conditioning conferences back in Michigan, and on to meet people like yourself here. So it's kind of an honor to be doing it on this stage. So for myself, from the great state of Michigan, and got my start at Northern Michigan University in strength and conditioning. I worked there 6 to 6 in the weight room with all the teams, and got a ton of reps coaching, probably more than I should have right out of undergrad. From there, took steps to improve my education, and I went to the University of Michigan grad school. For that, I must have done a good enough job that they hired me on as strength conditioning coach at Michigan, and then transitioned over to Penn State University, where I worked with baseball and field hockey, and now work at the University of North Carolina. I oversee our women's lacrosse primarily. I work with our rowing teams and assist with women's basketball. And I also oversee the sports science approach to our Olympic sports at Carolina. On top of that, I am now in the first year of a PhD, working on trying to learn a little bit more. The, the PhD for me is really about, throughout my career, I've had questions about training, about biomechanics, about recovery, about all the things that we know and love. And I felt I didn't have the tools necessary to like ask the right questions or test the questions that I do have. And so the hope now is I'll be able to ask the right questions, answer those questions, and hopefully win more championships.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, you guys are off to a great start on the championship route.
That's
Just
right.
coming off of a perfect season, a national championship. And while it sounds like you've done a little bit of everything from skiing to field hockey to baseball, lacrosse, sports science, and beyond, I certainly see you at your best in women's lacrosse. It just seems to be your calling that way. And naturally, coming off of a perfect season, that's no small feat. Very few teams, if any, get to accomplish that. What was the strategy going into this year for you, and how did you kind of know that this season was gonna be different, going to be special that way?
Yeah, yeah. The strategy for us going in was to tackle a lot of things that hurt our season the year previous. We had a lot of injuries. Truthfully, I just think we weren't as prepared for the demands of our season as we thought we were, and so we had a special emphasis on some of our conditioning qualities, on attacking certain things in the weight room. Built out a more robust testing structure, and just try to make sure that I was covering all my bases across there. But most importantly, the way that I was able to work with the coaching staff this year and the development we've had working together. That was the real secret sauce to me.
Yep.
If I was to give them training recommendations, they're changing immediately. They're the most open staff I've ever been around in terms of like sports science. Coach Jenny Levy is as knowledgeable on strength and conditioning, sports science as anybody, but she will always defer to me to do my job well. And it's something I appreciate a ton. In terms of like when did I know about this season? There was a few points throughout the year. Like coming in, we knew we had really good players. We were young and unproven. So my hard and fast rule is I'll believe it when I see it. And our freshman class, they're very good. I had to see it. First kind of moment for me was we were scrimmaging Maryland in the fall. And Maryland's a very good program. We were up, at their field, and they were giving us a little bit of a fight. Our freshmen responded super, super well. And culminating with a fourth quarter Chloe Humphrey goal. That is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen on a lacrosse field. It was like she was going behind the back, but got hit kind of mid shot. And so she was in a 180 spin and still hit top corner. It was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. Um, that's fall. And so you can be great in the fall, but it doesn't equal championships. So kind of the next moment when I realized we could have been really, really good was our first game against James Madison. It was a team that beat us by 1 goal in overtime the year previous, and we came out and just destroyed them. We held them as, I think, 14-2. Our defenders were lights out. our offense was clicking, which is weird on the first week of our season. And so we knew there was something there. And then we were fairly unchallenged throughout the year until Boston College, the first time around. And that was going to be really the pivot point for our team is how do we play against the reigning national champions? And I mean, they came out, responded incredibly well. Our team played a great game in really tough circumstances against a good opponent. And so when we won that game, I think we were all pretty confident we had a chance to go all the way. And sure enough, it worked out.
And it sounds like you kind of looked at that big picture and broke it down into small pieces, one at a time, both from the strength and conditioning standpoint and the sports science standpoint. And obviously, it sounds like that integration from a high performance team is so critical because I've talked with a lot of individuals who feel like they don't have that cohesiveness with their sports or between their sports science program and their coaching staff that way. How did you go about developing that over time, that trust and communication with them? Because I know a lot of other coaches want to get there, but they're just not there yet.
Yeah. For me, I think that is my special skill. I'm not even close to the best strength coach at University of North Carolina, but what I do very well is a communicator. And I immediately, day one on the job at Carolina and continue to do this, I make the time to go to my coach's office and see them face to face. Try to make laps, go to our athletic training space as well, and talk sports medicine and just be in person. Don't send the text or email, like go talk to them in person because at the end of the day, we all want to win games, win championships, and everybody is making decisions with that in mind. So we all have the same goal. So why fight over whose way or how this is going to work? Go have the conversation, come to an understanding as to why, and usually you find a route moving forward that fits both agendas. There's never really um, oh, actually, like you make a great argument and the why makes total sense, but no, that never happens. So it's a combination of just communicating, educating the people that don't have the education that I do, and just trying to be a good person. I recommend all my interns to go watch Ted Lasso for how to communicate in athletics environments, right? Kill them with kindness, make FaceTime. And it's okay to be a little self-deprecating at times and understand that maybe I don't know what I'm doing every once in a while, but my coaches totally understand that.
Absolutely. As Dan Taylor said, you have to go at it with high respect and low ego. And if you do those things, it goes well. And I think to your point, a lot of people never have the conversation. They just assume, oh, it's just going to happen. And it's like you have to put forth some effort. And I mean, we were talking about it earlier today. In order to get to the level that you're at, to be with a team that wins a national championship after a perfect season, it takes effort. It takes sacrifice. Like there's times when you're not able to respond to people immediately with your text because like
That's right.
there's work to be done, but it sounds like you did that work, not just in the S&C and sports science sense, but also from personnel sense as well, developing those relations with the coaching staff, with the players and athletes themselves. And that's carried over into the success, possibly as much as the S&C and sports science stuff, maybe even more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And like, I'm fortunate enough to work with, one of the best coaches in lacrosse history. I mean, Jenny Levy's been doing it for 30 years now at University of North Carolina. And like, it's understanding that her insight into lacrosse is just as good, if not better, a data point than all of my GPS tape, And so it's understanding like I have to take that into account. You don't get to the level that she's gotten to like on accident or by mistake. She is a resource that I need to set my ego aside and use. And so when it comes to the training of the team that she wants, I better ask her what her opinions are on what did we do well last year? What do we need to improve upon? Even if it disagrees with my model in my head of how we should train, I need to take her advice into account. And again, when I do that, it creates more buy-in from her for me. And we're getting to the point as our working relationship is she's willing to go to crazy ends of the earth to match what I'm asking for because she trusts that I'm doing the right thing for her team.
And going into like the programming side a little bit, how did you approach the off season for your team that way? I know you mentioned you had a few injuries to kind of clear up from the year before that way. How much do you individualize and how do you go about planning for that off season period if there is such a thing as an off season lacrosse
Yeah.
anymore?
One of the weird but really good problems we have at UNC is that we have a lot of athletes who continue to play through the summer, like international responsibilities and things like that. And so, especially with some of our star players, we wanted to really individualize and lengthen out kind of our return to sport build up for the fall and for the spring. So, instead of simply saying, all right, the whole team is at a 50% reduction in load and slowly build it up, I built out more individualized build out programs for all of our players. Some of our athletes who accumulated a lot more high speed running and higher sprint speeds had a longer, more gradual build up. As a result of some data collected by our kinesiology department, Dr. Abby Smith Ryan, and the new Dr. Sam Moore had recommended some longer build-ups, and so that's something I took into account for our higher end speed players. And then sort of individualizing out our training based on force plate assessment and different things that we do, where if we have athletes who are incredibly good force producers and they've been training all summer long diligently, maybe we don't need to run them on another max strength program, right? And conversely, we have athletes who are incredibly twitchy and very, very explosive, but maybe could use a little bit more high force production. Maybe we keep them on some heavier strength training for a little bit longer. And so, again, none of this is, I think, new. But what I think that I did very well this fall was individualizing, right? Having a big calendar laid out on my desk and knowing like where all my athletes are in their build up for the fall.
You always know where they're at, and I think that individualization piece is absolutely epic as well. That keeps coming up as I talk with strength coaches, is I think the days of everyone gets one program, one and the same done, are almost behind us, really. It's almost like we know so much now about each individual athlete, and I mean, your dashboards make it so easy to see it all. It's like, I can do a little bit more here, a little bit less here, and just provide a higher level of intervention for the athletes. And I think that sets you apart and you get better results because you're able to go that extra mile that way. And as you mentioned, you did a lot of it based on force plate assessments. And I know once fall ball comes around, you guys start doing those, what, like twice a week typically?
Yeah, so we have a more expansive testing battery that we'll do essentially right away in the fall. But we will do force plate jump assessments at least twice throughout the week, sometimes 3 days a week in the fall, depending on the tests that our athletic trainer might want.
Yep.
For example, we're instituting some balance assessments now as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that we have some baselines for return to play. So we might have two days a week where we're doing some of our monitoring, our typical counter movement jumps, and maybe the third day we're getting a touch, once every 4 to 6 weeks on a balance assessment, so that in the event of injury, heaven forbid, we have something to work back to in the earlier stages of return to play.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. Having those data points established early on. What other things do you carry over into fall ball that way? Because obviously it's a little less chaotic than in season that way. How do you go about hitting that fall ball time frame, carry over the success you started in the off season, and then kind of lay the foundation for later in the like regular season that way?
Yeah, so like for us, like we always want to define kind of what our goal is for our fall season for each month. I like to do it for each week and each training session, and so that's what we did, and we knew we had a younger team, and so we were gonna play a few more fall ball games, a couple, like, mini tournaments, like over at Duke, and so the theme for us was really development, whatever that looked like, and so when we think about development, we meant our freshmen, some of our transfers maybe needed more field time to play more lacrosse, to develop chemistry, to get some of the stick skills up to par. Where some of our returners who were not concerned about their lacrosse ability maybe needed a little more of that physical development. And so we were kind of bucketing players into what they needed more of. And again, it kind of goes back to the collaboration with the coaching staff of we knew this hectic fall season's coming up. So let's make sure the buildups are appropriate. And they would even, adjust minutes in games based on what we thought they needed for development. Where if it's an All-American senior who played enough lacrosse where, the scrimmage in October doesn't really make or break her season, then maybe she's going to get shut down for that fall event. Whereas maybe our freshmen who just need reps on a college lacrosse field and to learn to drop their stick after a goal, right? They just need to get practice doing that. And so we would work and adjust minutes accordingly.
Absolutely. And it sounds like to do that, you've had a firm understanding and foundation around GPS wearables and that sort of thing that way. And that's a new thing that, as we've experienced here, is growing on the lacrosse research side that way, which I'm super excited about that way. But I've worked with a lot of individuals who don't have a lot of experience with the wearables that way. What kind of things did you find helped to kind of lead to your success integrating the wearable technology into your framework in lacrosse that way?
Yeah. So with any technology, I think it only matters if you're using that information to make some sort of actionable training intervention or change.
Right.
And so again, kind of my superpower is the ability to help communicate these numbers to make a change.
Yeah.
Um, for like early starting out, it's even picking one thing. Like a lot of these companies have, like a general load total number you can use. To start with that and be like, okay, let's define what is a hard day, what is a light day, and modulate from there. For me personally, again, I think some of my success has been able to get a little bit deeper into understanding like what metrics are make or break for performance for us. Um, as I look at some of the abstracts over there and in some of the preliminary match demands of women's lacrosse, we're seeing very similar volume load numbers for our team versus some of the other ones. But one of the key variables that I think separates us is some of the higher speed, sprint speeds, high speed running totals. I think we do that really, really well. And it's a point of emphasis for me in training and in practice. Uh, so like, that's something that, those in lacrosse, they want to look at, just total distance. Well, that can be important, but I think in terms of making or breaking, wins and losses in games, how you do that 10,000 meters that day, I think matters a little bit more than just going 10,000 meters.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. It's not necessarily the end goal, it's how you get there
Yeah.
because all roads eventually lead to Rome, but you can get to Rome any one of 20 different ways. And some get you there quicker, some are a little bit, harder on the brakes, if you will, metaphorically speaking. I think that's such a great point to try and understand how each individual athlete is getting to that end goal. And then you can start to see trends over time, whether that's by position or by player type, and kind of get a little bit more of a firm understanding of who that athlete is. I mean, I just think about the player cards that you built out. It's like you literally can create like a video game profile for all of your athletes, which I'm sure they absolutely love that way. And I mean, I love to see it too, because it's like it makes it so easy. It's
Then
like,
they love them when their scores are really high. They really hate them if I show them a low score. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sure it kinda gets them that mindset of, "Oh, this is why we train. This is why we need to continue to get faster and get stronger because, hey, maybe this number's trending the wrong way, and it's time to kind of readdress that and correct it, if you will."
Yeah.
But you can see that in real time as opposed to finding out months later down the line that way. In that fall ball timeframe, how often are you working with the team in their lifts, and what does your kinda warm-up look like? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you integrate some of your warm-up work with practices and games, match
Yeah.
day type stuff that way. Do you, like, microdose certain qualities within that warm-up or
Yeah. So again, I'm incredibly fortunate. I mean, I work with the team every single day,
Yep.
in some capacity, even days when they're off. I'm working with their data. But like in the fall, we will lift 3 times a week and do a practice. Essentially every day, 5 days a week, and I will integrate my work in what they're doing every single day. So in lift warm ups, I will kind of progress through some basic corrective exercises, right? I have some individualized mobility routines that some might do where, we get into like step 4 of the warm up, it says hip mobility. And each athlete kind of knows what group they're bucketed into for like, oh, for hips, oh, you need adductors, maybe you need a little bit of glute work. And so they have some targeted things just to help improve the quality of their lifts. On the field, then we always match our warm ups to the qualities we're trying to build.
Mhm.
So if it's a day where I'm trying to build a lot of high speed running, I'll typically integrate our sprint mechanics. We'll do a little bit longer, drawn out warm up with some technical work, and then usually finish that with some linear speed sprinting so we can get a touch on some top speeds and then hopefully continually build those top speeds over the course of the fall. Conversely, with say a smaller field day or kind of more sevens, that's the day where we can integrate a lot more change of direction, some foundational, maybe short field cone drills to work on some basics before opening to more chaotic and then letting him go play 7v7 lacrosse. I was very fortunate too. For this past season, AJ Blue, who's with football at UNC, and now is with the Miami Dolphins. He helped me a ton with change of direction progressions for our team, and our coaching staff loved it. They loved calling them our cornerback days. as our warm-ups leading into some of our shorter field days. And so it's all about, we take those warm-ups that I think some people take for granted as this is my same 10-minute dynamic warm-up. And, we use them to meet the demands of the day and also put in a few progressions to hopefully get a little bit better. And I think we saw some wild successes in like sprint technique changes in our change of direction mechanics, and something that I want to expand out for the next year because it can only get better from here, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you just have intention behind every action. You have a purpose for it. You know what it's working towards. There's a theme for the day. And it sounds like you're not letting any little detail go to waste, right? Like a lot of times, to your point on the warm up, it's like, well, we're just going to use it to get their heart rate up. And you see the athletes do a walking lunge and then walk 10 yards and do another walking lunge. And it's like they're not really getting a whole lot out of that. Versus if you go at it with that approach of, hey, look, this is important. And the more serious we take this, the more serious we're going to be able to play, the better we're going to be able to play. And hey, we can actually use this time to get some legit good adaptations, because I think when people hear strength and conditioning, they only hear the strength part and they forget about the conditioning part. And part of that is, like you said, getting some of those different cutting and change of direction contacts, getting some of those repeat sprint contacts, because guess what? When the season rolls around, they're going to do it.
Yep.
So if you don't start it in the off season, it's going to be really difficult to get them to do it in season when it's asked upon them.
Yeah. And certainly, like, there are some parts of our warm up that are fairly standard, right? We still have to raise core body temperature. We still have to stretch our muscles, right? Like, we have to do the simple things.
Yep.
And our team knows like the first half of the warm up every day, but they don't know the second half typically, right? They'll know, okay, we're going to do some sort of hops, but right early in the fall, it might be in place double leg hops for time. But by the time we get to the end of fall, it might be like a skipping progression, right? As we've progressed the warm up throughout the course of the fall, just so we always are trying to work on the traits that I think they need to work on. And in sport of lacrosse, sometimes we have a lot of specialized lacrosse players who are elite, but maybe not the most developed athletes. And I think the warm-ups are a really great opportunity if you're given the time to work on some of those general qualities.
Absolutely. So how do you go about connecting that fall ball where you've got so much time with the athletes
Yeah.
with the spring session when it's kind of gapped by that winter break time frame, where maybe for about a month, the athletes are kind of off on their own that way? They go and work with private people, do you program for them? What does that kind of like in between period look like,
Yeah.
if you will?
So just based on the college schedule, knowing that we have a break in the middle, we push really, really hard leading into that break.
Yep.
Because we know we're done with fall ball games and we can make this a really hefty training time. And so we're doing some of the hardest conditioning we do all year, some of the heaviest, most intense lifts that we do all year. And by that time, right, we're seeing the fruition of 12 weeks of real strength and conditioning, which is fantastic. So what that does, one, it builds in an opportunity to use the break as a break. Maybe I can pull them back a little bit, and it doesn't matter as much if they're uh, training with a trainer or not. They can actually take the time to recover a little bit. Now, to answer your question, it's a little bit of both. I do program for them throughout all of break for sure. I mean, all 52 weeks of the year. But we do have some collaboration with people who do have private trainers. I tell my team all the time, if you're going to train with somebody else, it's better than not training at all, or it's better than training poorly. And by all means, what I'll do is I'll call some of those private coaches and just ask them, hey, what do you plan to do? Here's the program that I've written. Let's make sure that they're in lockstep, but give the private coach freedom to make adjustments as needed. Like I know back when I was interning, it's really hard to coach somebody else's program.
Yeah.
So I don't want to call this guy and be like, hey, run my program and that's it. But if I've got them doing something that's more, muscular endurance focused, some, low intensity goblet squats, and then they go to this guy and he's doing 3RM heavy box squats, West Side style, right? Like those two things are not equivalent.
They're a little
So,
different.
yeah,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we're just on the same page. But like if the private coach believes in doing back squats and I have them doing front squats, I don't truthfully care. I want to make sure that they're getting the best coaching possible as long as we're in lockstep as to what the qualities need to be.
Absolutely. There needs to be freedom to allow them to express their own unique coaching philosophy, but there has to be an understanding of, hey, these are Division I athletes and some of the best at that. So there's standards that have to be met. There's things that we're working towards, and if you go too far off of them, you're actually not just hurting the athlete a bit, but our program as a whole. So it's really just that mutual understanding of what those actions add up to. I think the other thing that's interesting is you mentioned about how towards the end of the semester, you kind of push them really hard because, hey, we can. But I know that time tends to get a little stressful for a lot of the athletes I rehab because they're like balancing finals and all this kind of stuff that way. How have your athletes been able to balance the demands of, rigorous sport with all the different academic things that
That just speaks to them. I mean, I'm very lucky that I've got athletes who can handle a lot. I mean, the standard at Carolina is championships, and they understand that the training that we do is meant for that.
Yep.
And my athletes know, and I say this to them probably too much. I give you nothing more, nothing less than what I think he needs. And so when we're doing lactic intervals on the cross country trails, they hate it. But when I ask for another rep, they never complain. This year, last year they did complain. Last year they were not happy. This year they're like, yeah, if that's what's necessary, we'll do it. It's no problem. And so they're given a lot of resources from our program,
Right.
like academic support. We have great like academic spaces just upstairs from our weight room. Their locker room's beautiful, and so I think we give them all the support necessary so they can handle all those stresses. Because on the back end, we know that we're going to ask a lot of them. So again, it speaks more to them than it does to me.
Yep.
But we know that it's time to push. We're going to try to help them out wherever we can. And of course, with all of our monitoring, I will pull back when necessary. But we have specific goals we're shooting for towards the end of the fall, and so we try to get them.
Absolutely. And on that topic of nothing more, nothing less, one of the things that comes up a lot when I'm talking with individuals in the lacrosse space is they believe that more is always better, or at least the athletes seem to think that more is always better. And I've worked with some athletes who are working with phenomenal strength coaches, right? Like take Matt Nine, literally wrote the textbook on strength training for lacrosse
Literally
with
did.
Joel.
Yeah.
Like he's a legend. But for some reason, some of his athletes were like, yeah, I don't think we're doing enough. So they go to the gym 5 days a week on their own, on top of practice, on top of lifts, on top of all the stuff they're already doing. And I can't quite wrap my head around it because I think sometimes less is actually more. Do you ever have that issue with any of your athletes where they think, oh, I'm not doing enough. I need to constantly do more, do more.
Yeah.
And they almost kind of get themselves in this like vicious cycle where they're just constantly pushing more than they really need to. It almost becomes detrimental eventually.
100%. I mean, athletes are high achievers, not just Carolina. Like, D2, D3. I am a mediocre at best athlete. I think I'm a high achiever, right? And so they want to do what's going to make them better, right? Like if you have a bench player who's trying to take a starter spot, they're going to work extra to try to do that, and it's encouraged. The thing is always directing that work to the right thing. So like we had some conversations with players where it's like they're trying to do extra conditioning workouts and they want to run more and be fit and in shape, and I love that. But let's sit down with the coach and say, like, what is the thing that's going to help you get on the field more? Are you out of shape? Then yeah, we can do more conditioning. We probably should. But is it more stick skills? Is it you need to watch more film? Well, then let's spend that exact same amount of time instead working on the thing that's going to make you better at lacrosse, not just better on my fitness test. Again, we don't use our fitness tests to determine who plays. We play the best lacrosse players, which I know it sounds crazy, right? Play the really good players, yeah.
And get a chance to win. My goodness.
Now, like, don't get me wrong, we play a very aggressive, fast-paced style of lacrosse, and in order to succeed in how we play, like, you're gonna need to be fit, fast, and fierce, and we're very proud of that, but that's not always the thing to do. And so again, communication with the athletes, like building that trust with the coaching staff, the athletes, all of us together so that we can openly talk about, hey, this is why it's great, this is why it's bad, and here's the way to direct that work so you can get better. And maybe this is one of the differences between men's and women's teams. I'm very fortunate. The women's teams, they want to do everything so perfectly. If I give them a simple coaching cue on their squats, hey, a torso up a little bit more, this much, like forward, backward, like where do you need it? Like they want it to be done perfectly every time before maybe they progress weight. Where some of my men's teams in the past, it's like more, 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 more. You just have to do more.
Yep.
When maybe they needed more technique correction. And so interesting differences between between genders for sure. And as long as we can direct them, then it's gonna be no problem.
That's interesting. I've seen that as well, where a lot of times certain athletes are looking for more feedback on things. And it's like sometimes I'm more than willing to give that. And sometimes it's like, no, you're good. Just keep going. Like, go to the beat of your own drum, so to speak. And we've covered so far what kind of led up to the success leading into the season, getting into the in season component, because ultimately that's where the magic happens, right? I know Anthony Cockrell talked about this with me when we did a podcast on volleyball, and he's like, it's all about peaking at the right time. You have to know when that is. You have to know what your plan was to get there that way. How did you approach the in-season component for you guys, especially with the growth of lacrosse, the amount of travel you all do? I mean, I'm assuming you fly private most of the time that way, which might help a little bit, but regardless, it's still a lot of stress on the athletes and a lot of different ways they're getting pulled that way, a lot to juggle that way. So how did you approach this in-season strength and conditioning and sports science assessment, if you will?
I always like to say, like, my job is split into fall versus spring.
Yeah.
In the fall, my job is to, help them meet the physical demands of their sport.
Yep.
And in the spring, it completely flips to like a fatigue manager. You know what I mean? Which isn't, fully true. We're obviously still working qualities throughout the spring as well, but my mindset shifts quite a bit because, like you said, the goal is win lacrosse games, not be on my back squat or my bench press, right? So for me, again, fortunate to be with the team all the time at every practice. And, I develop periodization plans for our practices. So we have physiological targets we're looking for, and GPS derived metrics primarily. And, for me, again, the secret sauce is the things that are not sexy. It's calendars and meetings and plans. We like to look at the calendar, we look at our athletes, and we try to think, where are the opportunities for us to push? Where are the opportunities for us to pull back? When looking at our game schedule, is there anywhere where we happen to find like a 5 or 8 day stretch where we can actually get an extra 2 lifts in and keep building on those physical qualities? And we'll do that. Are there some opponents that we have to taper for and peak for, like Boston College? Because we absolutely did that. Or are there opponents where we can train through and try to up our weekly training volume so that we can build that residual fitness for later on in the season? And so again, a big fan of calendars and meetings. And in those meetings, my two phrases that I say is, talk about calendar, talk about the kids. Talk about the calendar, talk about the kids. And where do those two things fit together? When you do that, you can find the opportunities to push when you have to deload, and it helps, all the plans that we have actually come to fruition.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've learned about you is a lot of the times the actions tend to be pretty obvious. It's like, hey, if X, we do Y. And even in the weight room, a lot of the stuff it sounds like you do is rather simple. And I think lacrosse is one of the sports I see this plaguing the most, where there's this concept of going overly sport specific with the exercises,
Yeah.
overly creative. And I know we've talked about this in the past on the social media influence on certain sports that way. And it's like sometimes if they can get a few reps of some cleans, some squats, and maybe a little upper body pump in, we're probably going to be okay for the most part. You don't have to get overly sport specific. You don't have to get too creative. Obviously, you have to be informed in your decision making, but sometimes the best answer is the one that's staring you straight in the face that way.
I mean, what I believe is that the athletes are absolute wizards at their sport. And if we give them the general qualities to be a good athlete, they will figure out how to translate that into being great lacrosse players. Let me give you a story. So Chloe Humphrey, when she was injured last year, we were on the sideline one day, and I was juggling some lacrosse balls. Chloe had never juggled. I said, well, Chloe, everybody should learn how to juggle. You should juggle. I showed her how to juggle. One, she was juggling within 5 minutes because she's an absolute freak of an athlete. And now she can do tricks and she can do all kinds of stuff and whatnot because, that's how she is. And I think it's the same way where if I, give them a little bit of lower body strength, give them a little bit of, core stability, give them some explosive power, um, they can go learn how to juggle on their own. Right?
Yeah.
They can turn that into being a great lacrosse player. And so I think keeping things more simplistic allows us to focus on the things that will make more meaningful change in the calendar, in our periodization plans, and translate to wins. So the simplicity is not just there for me, but it's there for the coaching staff as well.
as you mentioned, it's knowing what the athlete needs and then how can I provide it for them in the most simple way.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times, at least in my own schooling, when I did my exercise science degree, that wasn't ever really brought up.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, I think those qualities need to be pushed more, especially in a sport like lacrosse, where it's like, we're getting so many different things. Again, now there's so much amazing work done by guys like Matt, done by things like the SIG with Nicole and you and Tracy and so on. That way, it's like we're heading in the right direction.
Yes.
But it's like we just need to keep pushing the message over and over and over again. It's like preach the gospel a million times, and eventually people start to grasp it that way for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as we part of the niche that I fill in this field is sports science, and realistically, that's not GPS and course plates, it's calendars and talking to
Yeah.
people. That's funny. As one of the talks earlier, they were talking about conceptualizing sports science data, and the example that was brought up was, well, what correlates to improving your jump height really, really well? Well, just losing weight. So we should start telling our athletes just lose a bunch of weight. I mean, obviously, that's not true, right?
Right.
As performance professionals, we know, yeah, the contextual nature of that is like, well, maybe lose some weight, but maybe it's getting more powerful, getting stronger, things like that. And so that really, to me, is what matters more. Is like, great, we have a bunch of data, we have plans, but we got to contextualize it. You got to bring it down to the human level, first and foremost.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece that's unique about your season is not just the fact that you went undefeated and won a national championship, but you played, I believe, more games than anyone except Northwestern, who you played in the national championships.
Yeah.
That makes your work, especially on they use the term load management a lot lately, all that much more important because it's like the workload is that much higher. And oh, by the way, we're not just playing a national championship, we're playing it in Foxborough, coming from Chapel Hill, where Chapel Hill's pretty nice, mild winter.
I will say we had a moment getting off the plane where we left 80-degree sunny Chapel Hill, and it was like 50-degree, like rainy, gray, bleak Massachusetts. And we were like, oh man.
Absolutely, and it's like
But
trying to prep them for, any situations that way, and it's like, well, we can only go so far on the environmental considerations, but if the rest of our process is so well put together, we're still able to perform even in those terrible conditions.
100%. I mean, we try to do as much as we can on environmental conditions. I mean, matching our field surface that we're going to play on to our practices we can. We know we're going to be indoors. We practice indoors all week. I wish we could adjust climate. Oh man, I was laughed back when I was at Penn State. They would always be pumping in crowd noises and things like that to match environments. And I was thinking about like, can we get like a sprinkler system in to match like rain games and things like that? But
They're gonna start practicing on the field hockey pitch,
There you
and they're
go.
gonna throw the sprinklers on, man.
Well, I think the Big Ten this year, the Big Ten tournament was at Maryland, which is on field hockey,
Right.
and so a lot of the teams were practicing on their field hockey surfaces. So
Something different.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
something to think about.
It's crazy how some of those little things change how you play the sport that way.
Yeah.
And I watch, like, if you're playing lacrosse on grass, for example, and you watch how the ball rolls, and you watch it on like field hockey turf, there's a notable difference. And it's like, those little things do add up over time. And I realize we've kind of gotten to that in-season part that way, reflecting back on the whole year collectively. What was different about this year for you from your framework compared to last year? What changed overall, or what general themes were different, if any?
There was quite a bit that was the same, but how everything was implemented changed quite a bit. A lot more individualization. Like we're still going to do a preseason build, but what that looks like is now going to be way different for our individuals versus the whole team. Again, we had a lot more defined goals for some of our phases of training where they would say it in a meeting, hey, this is a maximal strength 4 weeks of training. So they will be a little more sore. They'll be a bit more tired. The jump numbers will go down a little bit while they're getting accustomed to, really, really heavy loads. But we know that, and that's okay. And so being much more intentional about defining our goals so that we can all be on the same page, I think was done much, much better. Um, and also I think everybody was just pissed off because we didn't have the year in 2024 that we wanted to have. And so there was a different level of intensity with every run, every lift, every practice where we came in with something to prove. the team had an old time cash register in their locker room throughout the year, and they were cashing receipts on anybody who danced on our grave in 2024. So there was definitely some animosity towards other teams, and I think I love a little hate in the world. It's great.
I love that. Now, how are you going to keep that same intensity and caliber up next year? Because it's like, well, no one could touch you
Yeah.
this year. So I know once you kind of scale to the top of that metaphorical mountain, it's easy to sit back in the lawn chair and enjoy the view, but you almost have to find a way to keep climbing as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, then, what's harder than going undefeated and winning a national championship? Doing it again. One thing that I cannot credit Coach Levy enough for is her understanding of like game psychology and athlete psychology. Like she knows the moments in games when it's so important to get a stop or when to score a goal or when to like really put somebody away or when you can come back against a team. She knows these things and it's incredible to watch. And same thing applies for us now moving into 2026 is understanding we will now be getting everybody's best shot because somebody wants to break our winning streak, right? Somebody wants to shut us up because, right, we're champions. We're going to talk a lot. And so we're going to get the best punch from every single team that we play. And we want that. We want to make sure that people understand that it's not a 1 year thing. We're trying to build something that's sustainable for many, many years to come. And I'm really happy that I have such good people around me to help do that. So again, that really comes from our coaching staff at the top and just the culture that has been put forth at UNC.
And it makes those peak moments like winning a national championship that much better because you're around such great people that way. What was that like for you? Because I mean, you're 30 years old. Most 30-year-old strength coaches are not winning national championships with one of the best lacrosse teams to ever play, really. I mean, you guys were a historic franchise this year. So what was that like for you, dude?
I mean, it's surreal. First and foremost,
Like, is it the I'm going to Disney World moment?
yeah, I mean, I was kind of like, as the clock was ticking down to zero, I just kind of dropped down to my knees, like, holy, and did it. It's kind of a culmination of, so far, all my career's work and some validation that maybe I know what I'm doing, I tend to have a lot of imposter syndrome, especially at conferences like this with so many brilliant people around me. But it's also incredibly motivating and educational for me to see like what it takes to do this. And yeah, I of course thought we were the best team all year round, but winning championships is incredibly hard. And like you can have everything go right and just not quite get there. Like for example, credit to Northwestern and Boston College; those were incredible teams this year.
Mhm.
And any other year, one of them definitely wins a national championship.
Yep.
We just happened to be there, Um, so it's understanding like all the things that go into winning championships. It's so far beyond the sets and reps in my weight room. It's so beyond like our coaches meetings. It's a village. It's our things like our parents of all the players, right, and the support that they give day in and day out. It's academics and how they can help support our athletes. I mean, it's our amazing donors at UNC who help fund our program and give our athletes all the opportunities that they have. And so it's such a huge process that makes winning it just such an amazing feeling because like it took hundreds of people to make this happen. So I'm still drinking it in, truthfully. I don't think I'll ever get used to it.
Absolutely. To your point, it is a lot to take in. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my goodness, we made it. We did it. We're here.
Yeah.
But obviously all that success always comes with some kind of cost, I like to call it that way. And we were talking about this earlier, even is a lot of times coaches see the success or the tip of that metaphorical iceberg, and they don't see what it took to get there that
Yeah.
way. So for you, what did it cost to get to this point in your career where you're 30 years old, winning national championship, best lacrosse athletes, period? How did we get here from small town, middle of nowhere, Michigan kid?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of hours, and early on in my career, it's working for no money, eating peanut butter and jellies and tuna for 2 straight years, and like, to be honest, like setting myself back from buying a home, because I wanted to do this so bad. And, um, yeah, I've seen a lot of really great coaches leave this field just through attrition and like it's hard. And I'm very fortunate enough to have some great parents who raised me not to quit anything that I do. I wanted to quit high school band so many times to play the trumpet, and nobody cares about trumpet player. But they would not let me because I made a commitment and I saw it through. And same thing kind of with this field. When I was committed to doing this field, I was going to see it through no matter what. Even now, like this past year, I mean, you ask my coworkers, like a lot of late nights where, I spent my days training my teams and being at practice, and I got 6 more hours of work to do, like, working on some dashboards, like getting data transferred over, things like that. On top of, I got an article to read for class tomorrow. And so, um, the thing that I always say to people is, if you're going to beat me, if you're going to beat me at this field, then you better give your life because that's what I do. And I don't think it's necessarily healthy, but it's how my brain operates, and so far it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
So,
it's all or nothing. Or
right,
you're either
right.
all in or you're not. It's
Mhm.
simple. It's almost like more of a like X's and O's way of thinking. It's like,
Yeah.
am I going to give my all at this? Yes. Okay. Done.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's impressive about you is it's like it's possible to do that while also being married, having a dog. Like a lot of times I think people in the field get so quick to cite like, oh, well, I can't give my all because I have this or I have that. And it's like, it is possible to
Yeah.
get that balance. You just have to get
Yeah.
creative with it.
Well, I think like people often think about it almost like the job and being married and having a dog is like adversarial. Like those two things can't go together. I completely disagree. Like my wife is the reason I can put in so many hours because she understands like one, she's married to a crazy person. It's but like this is how my brain operates. Like if it's on, and she can help me on the back end, right? Like there's days where I would forget my shoes if it wasn't for her, where she has my back, where she will be like, hey, make sure you eat today, or make sure you take care of yourself. My dog, right? Gives me joy the moment I look at him in the morning, right? And so uh it's a way for me to like instantly de-stress. Is having this big, beautiful golden retriever in my life. His name's Charlie, by the way. Um, and so yeah, like uh, it's a thing that I do every day. Like I take him out, I gotta feed him, gotta walk him, but it's also an excuse for me to take a 40-minute walk every day and clear my head from the stuff at work. And so again, like, I don't think those things detract at all from being able to put in so many hours. In fact, they're the reason that I can do it.
Absolutely. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I realize we've covered everything from where the season started to where it ended and even some coaching philosophy advice along the way, Jared. Who was the kind of the biggest influences and mentors getting you to this point in your career that way? Anyone you want to like shout out or credit?
Man, there are a lot of people. Some back at Northern Michigan University. She's now retired, but my advisor at the time, Patty Hogan, she was the first one to really push me into some sport science courses, and she thought it would be a big fit for me. And man, was it ever! At the University of Michigan, their whole strength staff there, Lou Porciazzo, Jason Cole, Mike Faber, the director, um, uh, Kate Smith, like they're unbelievable. They were great mentors and friends to me. Penn State, all the people that I work with there, the coaches, Josh Nelson, who's now with the Atlanta Falcons, and Mark Lewis, uh, who's now with the Texans. They were great mentors to me along the way, and all my current coworkers and people at North Carolina. It's one of the things that's maybe super underrated about my job is like the people in my office, people in the weight room are some of the best people that I know. And I learned so much, sitting at a desk right next to Eric Hernandez and, being able to talk shop with John Lamb and Alex Penner in my office. Like it's a joy to be at a place like that. And so we're coworkers, but they're also mentors to me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I can only imagine the quality of the conversations in that room. My goodness.
Yeah, I tell you, man, I'm the worst strength coach in our office. It's ridiculous.
Someone needs a microphone in there, maybe hit record, and then the UNC Performance Podcast will be born.
I tell you, like the conversations, like just in between training sessions, or if I'm working out with Alex, the talks we have in between sets, like, yeah, it's amazing. It's almost the quality of the NSCA National Conference.
No, that's incredible, man. And obviously, you mentioned the PhD a couple times. What's the PhD work look like, entail? How is
Well,
lacrosse
yeah,
kind
so
of finding its way into that?
obviously I do. I work a pretty long full-time job, and so a lot of it right now is taking some coursework, some advanced level biomechanics, exercise physiology, statistics, research methods, and trying to get that all in first. In terms of dissertation work and stuff, that's still sort of being formulated. I know for me, I'm more of a biomechanics focused guy, and I would like to really push the research forward in women's sports and women's health. So there's some synergies there with obviously coaching women's lacrosse at Carolina. So something in that realm for sure.
Absolutely, man. And I feel like we've covered a lot of different things about you and all the incredible work you've done. Is there anything we missed as we were chatting today, Jared?
Ah, shoot, I don't think so. I mean, I think that that's really been the last year for me is like, how do we take this lacrosse team to a national championship, and how can I, work that PhD and improve myself professionally and personally. That's really been kind of the summary of my year. But other than that, I mean, it's been a wonderful year, and hope we can do this again at the next NSCA national conference.
Absolutely, dude. I think it's in New Orleans next year, and I can not think of a better place to. Well, maybe Chapel Hill would be okay.
Chapel Hill's pretty good.
I think we could do a live
Listen,
one.
I've suggested before we need more conferences in the Triangle area. We got beautiful, beautiful towns. Chapel Hill is gorgeous. Great airport, so we'll get in.
It works.
Fairly central.
For people who want to find out more about you, Jared, where can they find you at, man?
That would be the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. No, again, I'm not super active on any social medias, but you're welcome to follow me on Instagram if you'd like. It's Coach_Jarvi, Jarvi. And I'm happy to respond to any emails, phone calls. You can find me on the UNC website, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to people about lacrosse, coaching, training, sports science, whatever it might be. I think Dan would admit I'm a pretty open guy. Happy to talk to people here at this conference, and anybody who's interested in this field. And in fact, like all the people that I mentioned before, uh, they were always incredibly open to me. And so I'd like to pay that forward for any other future coaches, current coaches who have questions for me. I don't know why you'd ever ask me, but if you'd like to, I'm happy to talk to anybody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll link up to all of that in the description once this publishes for the public to kind of re-listen to that way.
Yeah.
That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just catch Jared on all the major platforms that way. Jared, this was awesome, man. Appreciate your time and all the amazing work you're doing, dude.
Dan, thank you so much.